All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to take a pretty standard Angular application, one that's more of a static prototype, and we are going to breathe some serious life into it. We're talking about turning it into a real, dynamic, interactive experience. Let's get started.
You know the feeling, right? You've built something that looks good, all the components are in place, but it just doesn't feel alive. All the data is fake, just hard-coded right into your files, and clicking on links and buttons doesn't really do anything meaningful. Well, if that sounds familiar, you're in exactly the right place. We are about to change all of that.
So right now, let's think of your app as an island. It's totally isolated. From a distance, yeah, it might look complete and fully functional, but it has absolutely no way to talk to the outside world. It can't get new information, and it can't really change or react in any significant way. So here's our mission, and it's a three-part journey. First, we're going to give our app senses, so it can actually see real data from the internet. Then we'll give it space, creating different rooms or pages for the user to move around in. And finally, we'll give it a voice, so users can add their own stuff to the application. Okay, let's start with those senses. It is time to officially break free from all that fake, hard-coded data that's just sitting inside our code. We're going to connect our app to a real API out there on the internet using Angular's HTTP client, and we're going to pull in some actual live information. Now, when we ask for data from the internet, it's not instant, right? There's a delay. Angular handles this with a really powerful idea called an observable. But here's the absolute key. An observable isn't the data. Think of it more like a ticket or a receipt that promises the data will show up, eventually. It's a placeholder for something coming in the future. And honestly, this is the perfect way to think about it. An observable is just like a YouTube channel. You can't see the next video until you actually hit that subscribe button. Once you do, you don't know exactly when the new video is going to drop, but you trust that you'll get it as soon as it's ready. That is exactly how our app is going to handle getting data from the web. So what does this look like in the code? Well, it breaks down into a really simple three-step process. First, in our main app config file, we tell Angular we want to use the HTTP client tool. Second, in a service, we use that tool to make the request, which gives us back our observable. And finally, in our component, we subscribe to that observable, basically telling it, hey, let me know when the data gets here. And here it is, the payoff. You hit refresh, you see loading for just a split second, and then, boom, real live weather data from an external API pops right into your app. Just like that, our application can now see the world. That's a huge first checkpoint for us. All right, so our app has senses. That's awesome. Now it's time to give it some space. We're going to add navigation so our users can move between different views, like from a dashboard to a settings page, all without ever leaving the application. We're essentially building new rooms for them to explore. This brings up a really fundamental question for modern web apps. We want to show a completely new screen, like a settings page, but we absolutely do not want that jarring full-page refresh that reloads everything. We want to keep our header, our sidebar, our whole app state perfectly intact. So, how do we pull that off? The answer, the secret sauce, is the special Angular tag, the router outlet. Okay, think of your main app, the header, the sidebar, as the permanent parts of a theater. The router outlet is the main stage. The Angular router is like the stage manager, and its job is to swap out the scenery and actors, which are our components, on that stage, all based on the URL. The rest of the theater never changes. Now, to make this happen, we can't use a standard link. A classic A tag with an href tells the browser to just throw the whole page away and get a new one. Instead, we use Angular's router link. This little directive intercepts the click and tells the router, hey, don't reload, just swap the component on the main stage. This is the very heart of a single-page application, or SPA. And what's amazing is that the code itself is just so simple. It looks almost exactly like a regular link, but by just swapping href for router link, we unlock all of that seamless, super fast, single-page application power. It's an incredibly elegant solution.
And there you have it, our second checkpoint. You click the settings link, look up at the browser's address bar. The URL changes. The main content area updates to show the settings component, but the header with our live weather and the sidebar, they didn't even flinch. They didn't reload. They're exactly where they were. That is a true SPA experience.
Okay, our app can see and it has space to move around in. Now for the final and maybe most important transformation. Let's give it a voice.
We need to let our users actually interact with it, to add their own data. And we're going to do this by capturing their input with one of Angular's form strategies. To make this magic happen, we're going to use a core Angular concept called two-way data binding, and it is exactly what it sounds like. We are creating a direct, automatic, live connection between a variable in our component's code and an input box in our HTML. They become perfectly synchronized in real time. And it really is a two-way street. If you change the variable over in your code, the input box on the screen updates instantly. And if the user types something into that input box, the variable back in your code is updated instantly. You don't have to write any manual code to keep them in sync. Angular handles the whole thing for you. And the syntax for this magic? It's this funky-looking thing right here, what a lot of developers call the banana in a box. Those square brackets mean data is flowing into the template. The parentheses mean events are flowing out. And when you put them together, you get that perfect two-way street. It's a tiny bit of code that does a whole lot of heavy lifting.
And that is our final checkpoint. The user types a new task into the input, ngModel is keeping our component variable perfectly updated in the background. They click Add, our function grabs that variable, pushes it to our list, and then clears the variable, which of course instantly clears the input box on the screen. The user has now directly changed the state of our application. It's amazing. So let's just step back for a moment and really look at what we've accomplished here. We started with a static, isolated prototype, an island, really. And through these three key transformations, we've turned it into a living, breathing, interactive experience. So what this really means is that our app now has actual superpowers. It has senses to see real live data from anywhere on the web using the HTTP client. It has space, so it can have multiple rooms that users can navigate between using the router. And it has a voice, so it can listen to the user and change itself using forms. This thing is no longer just a mock-up, it's a real application. We've just laid the foundation for building almost anything you can possibly imagine. These three concepts, fetching data, routing, and handling forms, they are the absolute pillars of almost every modern web application you use today. So the only real question left is, with these incredible new powers at your fingertips, what are you going to build next?